Biology. Today we start our look into the ecosystem on how energy moves through it. We don't really think about energy too much, but if we did, like one of the things we would think about is if a cow eats grass and we eat the cow, do we get any energy from the grass? Do we get all the energy from grass and the cow? Is the combination, is it just the cow? Is all the grass energy used before? I mean, this is the introduction to think about what exactly do you get from eating a cow. I mean, we don't really think about eating a cow directly, but we do certainly have burgers, and those burgers have cows that have eaten stuff too. But you know, cows as they live, they're not going to be like just kind of saving all that grass energy as they live. They've got to live, right? So they have a couple of things that they do. Can I draw a cow here? Not really. They're going to have several things that they do that's going to use up the energy they do when they're eating grass. Like a cow needs to breathe, a cow needs to move, a cow needs to grow. And so, yeah, they're going to use up a lot of that grass energy, but maybe not all of it. So how does this exactly work? Well, let's explore that today. We're going to take a close look at how energy travels from producers to consumers in our environment. Our textbook on page 73 introduces this to us. It says, in every ecosystem, primary producers and consumers are linked through feeding relationships. Despite the great variety of feeding relationships in different ecosystems, energy always flows in a similar way. See, our book is going to talk about how, unlike things in the environment like matter, like, for example, water, water goes in a water cycle, doesn't it? It evaporates and then it goes through condensation to make a cloud, and then precipitation, and then runoff, and then eventually evaporates again. And so water actually goes through a water cycle, but energy is a one-way stream. It starts with the sun, it continues to primary producers, and then goes to various consumers. All right. So in your notes, you notice you have an example of this food chain. This food chain comes from our study of the Everglades. And we see here that this food chain has a purpose to it. Okay. It has a set of arrows pointing to where energy goes once something is consumed. In this environment, the algae is the primary producer, collecting energy from the sun, making energy as a source for other organisms. But eventually, flagfish are going to eat up that algae, and the largemouth bass, a carnivore, is going to eat up that flagfish, and they're going to have carnivores eat and eat and eat. The anhinga, the bird here, is going to eat the largemouth bass, and I guess an alligator is going to get lucky one day and catch an anhinga for a snack. So what is this actually showing us? What does the food chain show about the movement of energy in a biome? Well, exactly what our textbook was trying to show us, that energy moves in one direction, or in a one-way stream. Because it's not like at this point the alligator then somehow provides energy back to the algae and it just recycles itself. No. Maybe the matter of the alligator after it dies, eventually breaks down in the soil, but the energy that was consumed is either going to be used or lost. Or passed down in one direction. So here we have a difference between food chains and food webs. If we look at this diagram right now, it's kind of missing a few things. There aren't many arrows on it. I mean, this could be a food web, but you can see our original food chain here that we had in our notes, going from the algae to the flagfish to the bass to the anhinga, and way over here to the alligator. I mean, that is our original food chain. But it does not give you a full picture of the environment, does it? No, we've got all sorts of consumers and herbivores and primary producers and scavengers and all these things that are happening inside an ecosystem, so that if we really wanted to show the feeding relationships, we'd add things like this, a bunch of arrows pointing to different things. I mean, that is a food web, right? Because, I mean, what is the point of a food web? Connect the original food chain? We did that. Why is this now called a food web when we add all these arrows? Well, it's called a food web because it shows all the feeding relationships. In an environment. That's what the food web is. It is a way of seeing all feeding relationships within an environment. Food webs are pretty balanced, or need to be. I mean, there are things that can cause issues in a food web. There are specific organisms that are called keystone species. And the reason is because if we lost these keystone species, we would have big issues happen in the environment. For example, if we lost the krill in this environment, this is an Arctic environment, and so a water environment. If we lost the krill, and krill are like tiny little microorganisms that eat algae, but look how many organisms they feed. We got 1, 2, 3. Don't forget this one, 4, the blue whale. 5 different organisms in this environment that eat directly from the krill that would no longer have a meal. And it's the only thing they eat. And so just figure what's going to happen. We're going to lose these guys, the penguin, the petrel, the crab-eater seal, the blue whale, the herring. We're going to lose these guys. Either they're going to migrate away from this area or, run out of food and die off. I mean, that's the problem here. And when you have something like that happen, then you're going to lose more organisms because look at this. Oh, the poor raw seal has no food. And so you can see the trickling effect that happens here in a food web. These things that cause major changes in a food web, like the loss of krill, whatever causes a loss in a keystone species like that is called a disturbance. Disturbances could be things like it could be disease. It could be some other disaster, like a natural disaster. Sometimes, pardon my writing there. Sometimes even an invasive species could trigger a disturbance, like our lionfish from the other week. Okay, so there are a lot of things that can cause a disturbance. You have the challenge of trying to answer a few questions about this food web. It says, describe what can happen for a pig frog to overpopulate. Well, if that's going to happen, we're not going to have the predators that we have in this. Here's our pig frog right here. If you look on our map, we've got 2 big predators that eat pig frog, the alligator and the anhinga. If we wanted our pig frog to grow, we couldn't have things eat it. Like we needed to have no competition in here, nothing eating the pig frog. And so we would have to maybe lose our alligator and our anhinga for it to overpopulate, to grow bigger than it's supposed to. Okay, and explain and that kind of answers that one. Explain what might be in danger because of the overpopulation. Well, I mean, if you're going to have a huge amount of pig frogs, then I mean, what do pig frogs eat? The Everglades crayfish. Good luck, guys. I mean, if there are tons of pig frogs out there, more than they're supposed to be, and they're all looking only to you for a meal, well, you're in deep trouble, right? That crayfish is going to be in danger. And so what do we have the makings of here? We have a disturbance, don't we? The biological term we're looking for is a disturbance because we are having some major shakeups here in our food web. Okay, the video here is a good review. If you want to check that out, you can. Just you have to copy paste to what's up there or type it in carefully in your food in your browser, because this is going to help you get into what's coming next in biology, which is another way of seeing energy move through an ecosystem. We talked about how We don't get all the energy from grass and the cow when we eat a burger, but we do get some. Well, in our next lesson, we're going to see exactly how that works through what's called the trophic levels of an ecological pyramid. So stay tuned for that next time.